Yeah, it was wonderful to speak to you today. And James, I wanted to start with you because, from bringing the Muppets back to making an Alice in Wonderland sequel and even going all the way back to Ali G, you got such a varied and exciting filmography. But could anything you've worked on before really prepare you for the challenge of bringing this fantasy franchise to life on screen?
You know what it feels mostly like is that when you're given something like the Muppets, like a national treasure, and you have to really be careful and look after it and do right by it. It feels a bit like that because this book is so important to so many people. It's often sometimes the first book they've ever read of anything. And so everyone's got their own idea about it. And it's and as a consequence, it feels like they have an ownership of it. And therefore, when you are given the chance to create this world, you feel a great responsibility in the sense of like a weight, which is good because that's what work is work is art. So it felt like that a bit. It's very much like doing the Muppets. Muppets is the same. Everyone loves the Muppets. And so very similar to that. I felt that was going to be a challenge. But luckily, I think we did all right. So it's all good.
Yeah, for sure. And Dan, we've seen Percy Jackson on screen before, but what was really key for you when it came to making sure that this adaptation is the one that fans of these books have just spent so long waiting for?
I think as we got into this and started building it, it was going back to the page. It was really starting from page one of Rick's amazing book that we all were passionate about before we even started this project.
Yeah.
I'm a father, so
yeah.
And James has kids at the right age.
You've read all of it, like literally. I think my daughter's read everything Rick's ever written. I'm pretty sure. So, yeah.
My daughter too. It's like, and so Jon Steinberg and I actually asked about the project way before, like a year before Rick was even interested in bringing it back to this medium, or bringing it to film or television. So, and we just kind of, we were just like, what happened? Where's Percy Jackson? And didn't hear much about it. But then a year later, we got the call to say Rick is interested in bringing this to Disney, and are you guys willing, open to sitting down with him? And that's where it like all started 4 years ago. Been a long road, but an amazing one. But in the adaptation of it was going back to the book, sitting with Rick, sitting with Becky, and really talking about where these stories came from, where the themes are built from, because it came from such a personal, emotional, honest place, a dad telling the story to his child. And so just wanted to just dig in with them. And once we started with them, then you got everything about what it meant to them personally, then obviously seeing what it meant to the fans, and then just us, what did we want to bring to.
Because yourself, when you read the book, you're a fan as well as a person who's working on the show. So you have to remind yourself what you love about it. And also, when I got the script for the first time, which is 2 years ago now, I remember reading the first opening paragraph of the scene description. It said Percy Jackson brackets 12. And I went, okay, that's good, because he should be in the book 12, so this is 12. And that felt like a very good start to a script for me. So, yeah, I knew the guys had the right idea. We talked about it quite a lot, and they just had a very clear idea about being true to the book, which is obviously, the book is fantastic. So all we can do is try and do justice.
Oh, amazing. And of course, James, you do get to explore Camp Half-Blood in the second episode. And I know obviously you worked with a fairly young cast on Dora the Explorer, but could that in any way, talking of being prepared, could that really have prepared you for taking on an army of teenagers for those scenes?
Yeah, no, sure, because Dora was a lot of younger actors, and so was the show I worked on called The Mysterious Benedict Society, which is also Disney Plus. Again, similar young age actors. And I really enjoy their energy and their work commitment, and their spirit on set is just so fantastic for everybody. It's like a fun place to be because they are so happy and pleased to be there. And yet they get these incredibly adult performances. It's amazing. Where they are off set and where they're on set, it's an amazing thing to watch, a joy to watch, really, how they can compose themselves, get into the work, and it's just really lovely to see. So yeah, certainly Dora was helpful for that, and then Benedict Society too. So in fact, when we're casting, I'm sure we look at people we'd see for those people. Yeah. So that does help too. So,
but I need to give this guy a lot more credit than that, because Jon and I, we'd never worked with kids like this, where it's 160 days of shooting with three leads that are at the time 13, 14, and 16, and it was a tall order. It was really made it very challenging, but at the same time, these kids were so amazing. But this guy is the one who set the tone for us when we came out of the gate at the beginning. because we needed that kind of understanding of not only how to relate to them, but also.
What's up, everyone?
There he is.
Sorry about that.
Not only how to connect it, but also just someone who's had the experience that James has had working with kids. And the very first thing he said to us was like, just don't talk to them like kids. Like, just talk to them as people, and they will, they will feel respected and want to go to the ends of the earth for the show. And
they really do.
did.
Oh my goodness, if you see the stuff they have to do for the show, the physical stuff they have to do, some really heavy scenes, but also not just them and an adult, between themselves. It's a really hard scenes to pull off. The brilliant job. We had Andrew, of course, incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
Well.
Amazing acting coach, Andrew McElroy,
Who was fantastic.
who was just really, really guided the kids in such a beautiful way.
But,
Are we in this saying nice things about James?
Yeah.
I'll take a step back out.
Oh, fantastic. And John, I'm glad to see you here as well, because, I'm a big pro wrestling fan. So it's great to see Adam Copeland, Edge, in this series as Ares. So could you maybe talk about what led to you wanting to cast him and what made him right for that role?
He needed to be, Ares needed to be someone who you both bought as the god of war, and who could be not just funny, but be comfortable being the butt of the joke without fully realizing he is, which is a tough twist to pull off. And I think most of the people who can do all three of those things are movie stars. And so when we saw Adam's read, it was fairly instantaneous. And I confess it was a small window, and it took me 15 or 20 seconds to realize who I was looking at. So he was actually cast before I realized who he was. Not officially, but it was fairly apparent that it was him. And then there was the moment of, oh, that's why, because it's Edge. Of course he's great. So, but no, he was absolutely perfect from minute one.
Brilliant. And of course, James, it is your job having to direct these first two episodes to really set the tone for the story. And at the end of that first one, you get to helm that awesome fight sequence. I won't give too much away, but just for you behind the camera, how much fun is it to take charge of an epic fantasy battle like that one?
Fun is an interesting word to use. I mean, it's fun when it's finished. It's a lot of work. I mean, there's a huge amount of work by a fantastic stunt team. And, for the kids too, for Walker to work to sword play like that, because the story of that scene is he learns that he's good at sword fighting, which is quite an interesting thing. The story beats to tell. Any actor is always in narrative. It's very important. And we put that in there as a very important part of his journey, is basically learning he's good at sword fighting. But, and it was helpful having Dior too, because obviously she is a very physically intimidating person. So the actual fact that she really is quite scary in life, especially in Walker, is quite small compared to her, was very helpful.
He talks about it a lot.
I bet he does.
He was totally freaked out by her.
Because in that scene when they start, and she comes up from behind the rock, she's pretty scary. I'm quite scared of her. So I think there's a natural element of that actual real dynamic in there, which is really helpful. But yeah, it was just a question of working out the timings of it and where it's going to be. A lot of it was basically where we shoot it, because we needed to be near a big body of water. So we ended up shooting it right on this kind of body of water in Vancouver, and the tide was moving, so the tide it coming up and down. That was a really not a fun place to shoot for that reason, but I love the way it looked, so I thought it's worth it for that reason. So it's really fun.
Oh, fantastic. And, the entire cast is great from top to bottom, but of course, the series titled Percy Jackson, it's going to live or die on who takes that role. And Walker is just phenomenal. But for all of you, what was it about him that you think makes him right to play this character? Because not an easy one to pull off, and obviously to do Rick's work justice.
No, totally. I mean, for me, he kind of is the guy. like he is his personality traits off screen are not similar to Percy Jackson's in the book. And that wasn't something I knew. You kind of, when we do castings, we often talk before the line readings. And those things to me are often even more interesting than the actual reads themselves, because that person always comes across somehow in the performance. And Walker had this sort of magnetism about him. He's smart, he's clever, he kind of has this kind of cheekiness, he's funny, he's sarcastic, he's all these fun things about Percy I really enjoy myself as a reader. And I felt that from him straight away. And then obviously hearing him actually do the performing, acting, reading bit was also so phenomenal. Like really just, it didn't take any time at all, really. We were so lucky because he came in and he absolutely nailed it. And that is not a thing that happens very often. So we were so incredibly lucky. And, you know, he was the sort of centerpiece of our arch, of our construction. And when you have that, you can build all around it. And that was just so fantastic.
Yeah, and same for you, Dan and John. You would say the same about Walker?
I mean, we knew right away. As we all saw the tape the first time, we just knew it, and it was just, there was something raw, something very real about when he first read, that you just kind of we just saw it, and then and he's also just a kind, sweet soul. Like he's just good people. Yeah. And that's a big part of it, is like, what, you know, this is a tall order for a 13-year-old to be #1 on a call sheet for such a huge project. That's a lot of responsibility. There's leadership in that role. There's expectations. There's, you know, when he steps foot on that set, how is the crew going to react? And he's such a good person, and so fun, that everybody it was contagious, like that magnetism. Everybody just wanted to be around him. And he just made it a joy.
Those are the things he does as Percy in the show are things he does as Walker in real life. Like this thing, he does the tap, this thing. Yeah. That's a classic one. He does it all the time. So that's just, within the things, it's what he does. That's how he is. And it feels very personal to me, that. So I thought that was a great thing that he has that anyway. But yeah, it's really just a great, so charming person, so nice.
Oh, fantastic. Well, John, you know, we're talking about the cast. I obviously asked you about Adam, but, you know, I need to mention the late, great Lance Reddick as well. So when you were putting together the series and this story, what about him made you felt like he was the right person to play Zeus, particularly with what you saw on the page with Rick's work?
Lance was that guy. I mean, there was such an authority and presence, and you know, you could just go on and on, finding you know, words to describe this thing that happens when you're talking to him, or when you're in his presence, and it seemed fairly apparent, and was really you know, both really grateful to have gotten to do this with him, and to have him as a part of this universe, and heartbreaking, you know, to kind of reach the end of this, the end of that part of that journey in production, and have that happen just really weeks after he had wrapped, was rough, but really, you know, for a show that hopefully will last for a long time, and will be seen by a lot of people, really makes you feel good to know that they're going to see that guy in that light, and that hopefully it'll be a part of the way people remember.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed, and I'm sure it will. And, you know, we've seen obviously a lot of streaming shows in recent years become more and more ambitious, whether it's Mandalorian or Lord of the Rings or Marvel. But when it came to Percy Jackson, Dan and John, what was it that you think made it a better fit for a TV series than going down the route of making another movie like the past two?
I would not want to be responsible for figuring out how to translate that book into 115 pages of script. It just doesn't want to be that story. And I think, you know, when you read the book and you try to begin imagining it on screen, there's just too many things that feel like they're integral, cannot be omitted. You know, really material parts of the story. And that mapped really cleanly into 8 episodes. There wasn't really a lot of conversation early on, or a lot of disagreement, I guess, about what it should look like and where these episodes should begin and end. It felt like it wanted to be in this format.
Yeah, for sure. And Dan, you know, I know Rick said earlier this year that back in March, work on season 2 had very tentatively started, but obviously the strikes are over now. Is there anything you can maybe tease about where things could go moving forward, and just what your hopes are for this franchise, whether it be just more seasons or even spin-offs with these pretty wonderful characters?
let's go, let's do this forever. The goal is to make more of these. I mean, I think when we set out, it was to do a book a season, and the hope is with success that we will get to keep doing this. So I think Rick set the pathway with these books. We have these books going forward and kind of.
He's still writing them.
He hasn't stopped.
He's still writing me those left.
And I don't think he plans to stop. It's awesome. I think he's so excited after, I think it's been almost 15 years since book 5 was written, for him to just be back in this world. And it's exciting for us to just think about what we could do with these other books. Right now, we're just excited to be here after 4 years. The fact that
one thing at a time,
we get to launch this, and that the strikes are over, and then we get to celebrate this story and this series, and really the team that put this together, because we're so grateful to the amazing talent across the board that came together on this, and we hope the audience feels that they see that in the episode.
Oh, for sure. And just finally, James, I know you've done some big movies before this one, and obviously some big TV shows, but coming onto a huge fantasy project like this, you've got to use the volume and obviously explore some very big ideas. So has that given you a taste to go on and do maybe more fantasy, or even something like Star Wars, where obviously the volume is becoming a huge part of those TV shows?
No, I mean, I like working in a big canvas. I always like that, and this book demanded it. It's very epic in scale, and so I wanted to make this feel the right size, and I feel that the show really does feel like that, which is fantastic. But I know I love world building. It's my absolute favorite thing, and it's really, especially when we have a kind of fantastic basis to build from the book, because you have a sense in your own head of what it is. And obviously these guys do just so brilliant. It's so fun. So no, I don't know. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I very much right now enjoy books to screen. Books to screen, my current favorite thing. So who knows? Who knows?
Awesome. And actually, just one quick one for all of you. If you could, for fans, if you could describe the show in one word for them, what would you think it would be?
That's a good question.
Great question.
Magical. It's magical. The show is when I watch it, it's pretty yeah, I
stole ours.
Yeah, it's magical. It really is in many ways.
Epic.
Yeah. Epic's a good one.
Epic's good.
Second magic.
That's a cop out. Come on. There's other words.
He went first.
I could feel it coming from me. That's why
It's fun.
Yeah.
Fun's good. Fun's good.
Yeah. Epic, fun, magical. I'd agree with all of those guys. Thank you so much for taking the time today. I had a great time with the episodes I've watched, and can't wait for people to check it out when it hits Disney Plus. So thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Josh.
Appreciate
Thank
you.
Josh.